there aren't 50 Coca-Colas. There aren't 20. If there were, it'd be fine. We could all go out and diversify like crazy among that group and get results that would be equal to owning the really wonderful one. But you're not going to find it. And the truth is, you don't need it. I mean, if you have a really wonderful business, is very well protected against the vicissitudes of the economy over time and the competition. I mean, we're talking about businesses that are resistant to effective competition, and 3 of those will be better than 100 average businesses at Zone 4.
My name is Mark Hake. I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm very interested in your policies on diversification and also how you concentrate your investments. And I've studied your annual reports going back a good number of years, and there's been years where you had a lot of stocks in your marketable equitable securities portfolio, and there was one year where you only had 3 in 1987. So I have 2 questions. Given the number of stocks that you have in the portfolio now, what does that imply about your view of the market in terms of, is it fairly valued, that kind of idea? And second of all, it seems that whenever you take a new investment, you never take less than about 5% and never more than about 10% of the total portfolio with that new position. And I wanted to see if I'm correct about that.
Yeah, well, on the second point, that really isn't correct. We have positions which you don't even see because we only listed the ones above 600 million in the last report, and obviously those are all smaller positions. Sometimes that's because they're smaller companies and we couldn't get that much money in. Sometimes it's because the prices moved up after we bought them, and sometimes it's because we may be selling the position down even. But so there's nothing magic. We like to put a lot of money in things that we feel strongly about, and that gets back to the diversification question. We think diversification as practiced generally, makes very little sense for anyone that knows what they're doing. Diversification is a protection against ignorance. I mean, if you want to make sure that nothing bad happens to you relative to the market, you own everything. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that is a perfectly sound approach for somebody who does not feel they know how to analyze businesses. If you know how to analyze businesses and value businesses, it's crazy to own 50 stocks or 40 stocks or 30 stocks probably, because there aren't that many wonderful businesses that are understandable to a single human being in all likelihood, and to have some super wonderful business and then put money in number 30 or 35 on your list of attractiveness and forego putting more money into number 1 just strikes Charlie and me as madness. And it's conventional practice, and it may, if all you have to achieve is average, it may preserve your job, but it's a confession in our view that you don't really understand the businesses that you own. On a personal portfolio basis, I own 1 stock, but it's a business I know, and it leaves me very comfortable. So, do I need to own 28 stocks in order to have proper diversification? It'd be nonsense. And within Berkshire, I could pick out 3 of our businesses, and I would be very happy if they were the only businesses we owned and I had all my money in Berkshire. Now, I love it, the fact that we can find more than that and that we keep adding to it. But 3 wonderful businesses is more than you need in this life to do very well. And the average person isn't going to run into that. I mean, if you look at how the fortunes were built in this country, they weren't built out of a portfolio of 50 companies. They were built by someone who identified with a wonderful business. Coca-Cola is a great example. A lot of fortunes have been built on that. And there aren't 50 Coca-Colas. There aren't 20. If there were, it'd be fine. We could all go out and diversify like crazy among that group and get results that would be equal to owning the really wonderful one. But you're not going to find it. And the truth is, you don't need it. I mean, if you have a really wonderful business, is very well protected against against the vicissitudes of the economy over time and the competition. I mean, we're talking about businesses that are resistant to effective competition, and 3 of those will be better than 100 average businesses, and they'll be safer, incidentally. I mean, there is less risk in owning 3 easy-to-identify wonderful businesses than there is in owning 50 well-known big businesses. And it's amazing what has been taught over the years in finance classes about that. But I can assure you that I would rather pick, if I had to bet the next 30 years on the fortunes of my family that would be dependent upon the income from a given group of businesses, I would rather pick 3 businesses from those we own than own a diversified group of 50. Charlie?
Yeah, what he's saying is that much of what is taught in modern corporate finance courses is twaddle.
Do you want to elaborate on that, Charlie?
You cannot believe this stuff. I mean, it's modern portfolio theory, and yeah,
it has no utility. But I mean, it will tell you how to do average. But I think anybody can figure out how to do average in 5th grade. I mean, it's just not that difficult, and it's elaborate, and there's lots of little Greek letters and all kinds of things to make you feel that you're in the big leagues. But there is no value added.
I have great difficulty with it because I am something of a student of dementia, and I have.
We hang around a lot together.
And I can ordinarily classify dementia, on some theory structure of models, but the modern portfolio theory, it involves a type of dementia I just can't even classify. No. Something very strange is going on.
Yeah. If you find 3 wonderful businesses in your life, you'll get very rich, and if you understand them, bad things aren't going to happen to those 3. I mean, that's the characteristic of it.
By the way, maybe that's the reason there's so much dementia. If you believe what Warren said, you could teach the whole course in about a week.
Yeah, and the high priest wouldn't have any edge over the lay people, and that never sells well.
Right.
Zone 1.
Good afternoon, Mr. Buffett. I'm Nelson Coburn from Silver Spring, Maryland. I have one question I want to ask that hasn't come up here yet. Where does the money sit that comes in, say, from dividends and whatever other income that comes into Berkshire that you're waiting to invest someplace else? Is it get someplace where it's taking in a profit, or is it just sitting gathering dust?
Well, we only have about 4 or 5 commercial paper names we accept. We're very picky about where we put the money. All gets invested. We do not have anything sitting around in the safe or any place else. So it's all invested. But we do not get venturesome in the least in terms of where our short-term money goes. So we only have, like I say, maybe 4 or 5 approved names on commercial paper, all of which I approve. I mean, if anything ever goes haywire on this, it's my fault. Right now we have maybe $1 billion and something in relatively short-term treasuries, and we have a little extra in some commercial paper, maybe. But you will never see us reaching for an extra 1/8% on short-term yields. Some of you may remember the fiasco in Penn Central in the commercial paper market, and Penn Central around 1970 or thereabouts was paying 1/4 of a point, as I remember, more than other commercial paper issuers. And of course, they one day, despite showing a positive net worth, I think, of $1.5 billion or so, they said they they had a lot of net worth but no cash. Turned out cash was more important, and so they defaulted. Now, the interesting thing about doing that is if you're getting a quarter of a point extra, and you came over on the Mayflower and you landed and you said, well, I'm going to apply myself to getting a quarter of a point extra on short-term money, and you didn't make any mistake until you got to Penn Central, you would, aside from the compounding aspect, you would be behind at that point. And I don't like a business that you can do right for 300 years and then make one mistake and be behind. So we are very picky about short-term paper, but it is all invested, and when it's large amounts, it probably will be in treasuries. A couple firms whose commercial paper we take.
Maybe we can vote.
Yeah, but I don't want to cut off. Charlie says maybe we can vote, but I want people to have their questions. No? It just encourages them when you do that. I want to be sure people get their questions answered on this. I don't want to prolong it beyond. If you feel your question has been 95% answered by an earlier question, I hope you'll skip asking it. But we do want to have people who have questions about it answered, because I can tell by commentary and letters I've received that some people have genuine concerns. Yes?
My name is Jan Anglin. I'm from Southern Indiana, and this is my first Berkshire meeting.
Good.
I did have a concern about the B shares that's less business and more, I guess it would be concerned with your and Mr. Munger's personal safety. I often see your picture in the newspaper, and I certainly don't mind seeing it on financial magazines, but now it's kind of like proliferating. I don't like the idea that you are so visible. That bothers me.
Yeah.
I mean, do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I understand exactly, right. Yeah, it's occurred to me. I appreciate that, but the answer is there's no other way. I mean, if over time, in terms of what happens, and as it grows, you get more visible, basically.
I know, but along with the B shares and things, can you kind of like be quotable but less available for photos?
No. Well, I normally am. If you've noticed, in terms of interviews or anything of the sort, I do not do them. I've been invited to go on all of the news shows, and I basically don't do it. Frankly, with the shareholders, I feel differently about this group. I'm delighted to see everybody come here, and I enjoy getting together with the shareholders. I think the real protection is if we'd done something that had caused the stock to balloon way up and then come way down, I might have had to be a little more careful.
I think she has a very good idea. Having seen that acting, I think hereafter maybe you should be the voice of Mickey Mouse.
I do appreciate the sentiment on it very much, and it is unavoidable to a fair degree, although Charlie may have thought I wasn't pushed into those acting jobs.
I spoke about having 100 models in your head, but those are all great big models of considerable generality that are useful over and over again. Now you're down into very complex sub-modeling when you get into a separate model for what's going to happen in industrial consolidations and retail and so on. And I'm not up to all those sub-models.
The truth is, we're up to a few, but we take the general models and plug them in, and sometimes the light goes on, and sometimes the light goes on, and sometimes it doesn't. But if it does, they could be quite useful. If you focus, you do see repetition of certain business patterns and business behavior. And Wall Street tends to ignore those, incidentally. I mean, Wall Street really doesn't seem to learn for very long business lessons. It may not be to their advantage to learn it. That would probably plug right into Charlie's model.
You bet.
Yeah, it's better to if you're out selling the future, it may be better to forget the past if you're getting paid on selling it and not on betting your life on it in some way. One situation at Berkshire that really is somewhat different than many companies. We assume, and unfortunately it's an error, but we assume we'll be around forever. So when we are in our insurance business, we assume we're going to be here to pay every claim. And we're not going to retire at 65 and hand over something to someone else. And there wouldn't be any sense playing games on accounting because it would catch up with us later on. And whereas in many businesses, I don't think they have quite the same horizon on things. They do it at Coca-Cola or they do it at Gillette, but many companies are thinking about what kind of, I'm afraid that more than you'd like, are thinking about what kind of little pictures they can paint for the next 4 quarters or so, and that's easy to do, but our problem is we're going to be around a lot longer, we think, than 4 quarters, so that's not an option available to us, and we really run it as if in the year 2050 or something, somebody's going to look and say, how did it work out?